Hello everybody and welcome to OmniPoke, the channel that brings you guys everything Pokemon. I'm Jack and today I'm here with another Ultra Prism deck analysis for you guys. As you can see, today we're going to be taking a look at the new way we're going to be running Raichu-GX, the sort of Raichu Pachirisu archetype. An archetype that's actually very similar to things like Turbo Dark, things like Xerneas Break. Turbo Dark doesn't see too much play anymore, but Xerneas is still a decent meta call in my eyes, and this deck is incredibly similar to that, taking full advantage of being able to get a lot of energy on board to start one-shotting things pretty quickly. So starting us off, this is our energy accelerator, the new Pachirisu. Pachirisu has 70 HP, weak to fighting, resistant to metal. The resistance to metal is actually kind of worth noting on all of these guys, just because things like Registeel aren't doing their regular amount of damage, so things like Turbo Metals is going to struggle a bit more against this deck. And even things like the Magnezone based decks. Because Necrozma only does 220 damage, when we get to Raichu you'll see that he actually lives a Necrozma hit without a choice band, so the resistance is actually relevant in this case. This guy's got two attacks. The first attack is Nuzzle, letting you flip a coin. These are both a lightning cost, letting you flip a coin, and if heads, your opponent's active Pokemon is now paralysed. Always a decent attack to have, just sort of in the off chance that you need a little bit more time. And the second attack, Static Generator, for 1 lightning, lets you search your deck for a lightning energy and attach it to each of your Pokemon with the Nuzzle attack. So it's even more important that this guy has Nuzzle, because you can't accelerate onto him. So that's really cool. That's essentially what our energy acceleration sort of is, and that is why the Pikachus we're using are the Nuzzle Pikachus as well. Obviously Nuzzle is a fantastic attack anyway, but because we have Nuzzle on this guy, it also means that we can search out energy, and we can get up to 6 energy on per turn, or sorry, 5 energy on per turn, which is really, really good. If we have a full bench of Nuzzlers, Pachirisu searches for 5 energy and attaches them. So yeah, we kind of have to run this Pikachu just to be able to have this energy acceleration. We're running 3 Raichu-GX. Raichu-GX is the main attacker of the deck, powerful spark for 2 colourless energy. Does 20 damage plus 20 more for each lightning energy on your board. So as you can see, this is pretty much identical to Turbo Dark Darkrai attack, just for lightning energy instead. So we can really ramp into damage. A lot of people know or are familiar with the Turbo Dark style deck, and you can get into some pretty big numbers quite quickly with this. The good thing about Raichu, however, is unlike Xerneas is a deck that really, really focuses on getting lots of energy, and that's how it does its damage. Raichu has the backup attack of Thunder for 2 lightning and a colourless, doing 160 damage, and you deal 30 to yourself. So we have another option, is the big sort of, well, one of the big selling points about this deck. We don't have to have this full board of energy, and if we don't get that energy we lose, because we have the option to use Thunder as well and start taking one-shots that way. We have choice bands, we have Guzmas, so we can start taking easy prizes on Lele's, whilst we carry on attaching energy if we maybe want to go for a powerful spark later on in the game. But yeah, it's just really nice having having access to a second attack that doesn't rely on this whole board setup of attaching lots of energy. One of the slightly bigger weaknesses of this deck is because Pachirisu only attaches to Nuzzlers, we do have to leave these guys as Pikachus for the majority of the time until we're ready to attack with powerful spark. But a lot of the time what you want to do is actually evolve one of them into a Raichu-GX anyway. So yes, you're not getting the access to an extra energy through static generation, but you are able to sort of come in really quickly and use Thunder and take a knockout if your opponent starts applying pressure to the other Pikachus. So you always have access to at least one big attack during the game, which is really, really nice. His GX attack, Voltail-GX, for the same cost, 2 lightning and a colourless, does 120 and auto paralyzes the opponent. This isn't as good in a format full of Acerola and Guzma, I must admit, but there will be situations where maybe you've ended your opponent down to 1 or 2 cards, and you've only got 1 or 2 prizes left yourself, and you're able to Voltail-GX because they're less likely to have access to these resources that get them out of this paralysis, which is really nice. So it's nice for closing out the game if you're able to combine it with like an N or something. We've got 1 Mew-EX. Mew is a really, really good answer to Buzzwole. Buzzwole is a card that can kind of ruin this deck a little bit, and it's seeing a lot of popularity right now. Buzzwole's one-shot Pikachus with any energy, and they one-shot Pachirisus with either strong energy or a Regirock in play. So we do need an answer to Buzzwole, and because we do have weakness on or with Mew, we don't take too much energy on the in general to be able to start hitting with Mew, which is really, really nice. And because we also run the recovery of 2 super rods as well, we can reuse this Mew pretty efficiently in the Buzzwole matchup. We've also got 1 Oranguru. This is a card that you'll often see in Xerneas lists, and very similarly here, we want to be able to draw cards in the late game. We don't want to be end out of the game. This deck really likes taking 2 prizes on things. It doesn't want to face too many non-EX matchups too much. So we want to have access to Oranguru to not get end out of the game and try and find our last Guzmas, things like that. And then finally, 3 Tapu Lele. As I've mentioned, it's really important to hit Guzmas when you need. It's also important to hit Brigettes when you need, because this deck kind of relies on Brigette. We're running a 3 count instead of a 2 count, unlike usual. So, you know, you want to have access to this turn 1 to find the Brigette and fill your board up with Nuzzlers, and you also want to have access to Lele late game to be able to, like I say, find Guzmas and things. We've got a lot of supporters that we also want to hit. We want to hit a supporter pretty much every turn just to be able to keep attaching energy along with Statue Generation. So yeah, it's really good to have 3 Leles in here. Onto the supporters themselves, we're running 3 Brigette. As I say, Brigette is a really fantastic card in this deck. It means that you get multiple Nuzzlers out. If you can Brigette for 3 Nuzzle Pokemon, that's essentially 3 attachments turn 1, which is really, really nice. So yeah, we just want to be able to find Brigette as often as possible, and the combination of 3 Lele and 3 Brigette should mean we start with it fairly often, almost every game. For N, this deck isn't overly aggressive. Once it gets sort of into its damage, it's very aggressive, but in the first few turns of the game, we're not taking prizes, we're just using Static Generation to build up a board. Excuse me. So to do that, we're not going to be able to. We're not going to be punished by playing our own ends. We're not going to be only drawing 2 or 4 cards. We're going to always be drawing 6 cards until we initiate starting to take these prizes, which is really nice. It means that Shuffle Draw is really good in this deck because we don't want the energy in our hand. We want to attach 1 per turn, and that's all we want in our hand. So we want to be able to shuffle these energy back into the deck to guarantee that we can get the maximum value out of Pachirisu's attack. So having N, and as you'll see in a moment, Cynthia, sorry, as well. You know, it's nice to be able to get his energy back in the deck and not worry too much about discarding too much energy in the early game, at least. Running 4 Guzma, as I say, this deck really likes not necessarily trading up, but trading with EXs and GXs. So because of that, once we've got this huge board set up, we want to always be hitting Guzmas to take out sort of various different things that our opponent's setting up. This deck can hit huge numbers. We're playing a huge count of energy, so the damage cap for this deck is really high. And it also means that we can start taking prizes relatively early as well, if we want to. Because of this high amount of Guzma, it's not too hard to get into the damage range of a Lele kill in the early game. With 2 or 3 energy, you can be hitting over 100 damage, so it doesn't take much to be able to push that a little bit further and reach Tapu Lele. So having access to 4 Guzma is, again, just really nice to be able to initiate this race as soon as we want, which is really important for the deck. It's a very passive deck until you sort of hit go, and when you hit go, you want to be able to finish the game in 3 turns, ideally. Complementing the 4N, we are running 3 Cynthia as well. Cynthia is a new card from the new set, which is a reprint of Professor New Theory. This lets you shuffle your hand in and draw 6 cards. It's a really, really good hand refresh. As I say, we want to be shuffling our energy back into the deck rather than discarding them. So between 4N and 3 Cynthia, we're always going to be able to do that. We're not going to worry about discarding them. As you'll see in a moment, we're only running 1 Sycamore. So we're not going to worry about discarding them and not getting value out of Static Generation. We're always going to have energy in deck until we want to stop using that attack and start using Powerful Spark. So yeah, it's just a fantastic supporter in general, and really suits this kind of passive deck until you hit go. And finally, as I mentioned, we've got 1 Sycamore. Power Cycle is always going to be good. Power Draw is always good. So we still want access to Sycamore. There's going to be certain situations where we just need to dig. N isn't getting us too many cards. We want to dig that 1 extra card to guarantee a choice band or an energy for the knockout. So just having access to 1 Sycamore is always great. And again, with 3 Lele, we find Sycamore whenever we want. Items wise, we are of course running 4 Ultra Ball. it's a fantastic card. It's seen in pretty much every deck. Turn 1 Tapu Lele. Between turn 1 Tapu Lele and Brigette, it means we have technically 10 outs to turn 1 Brigette. We have the 3 Brigette themselves, plus the 3 Lele themselves, plus 4 Ultra Balls. So that's really, really strong. Really, really high odds of getting this turn 1 Brigette, which is kind of the backbone of the deck. I've got 4 Choice Band. Very similarly to these other sort of energy board, fill the board with energy style decks. Xerneas plays 4. Turbo Dark played 3 to 4 when it played Choice Bands, and you know, you just want to ramp that damage even further. It means that we really do not require much energy to reach Tapu Lele knockouts. Plus, it's also an odd number of damage, if that makes sense, because this starts at 20 and goes up in increments of 20. This is our sort of math fixer. We don't need 2 extra energy. We can just attach a Choice Band. So having 30 damage technically in one card is really, really strong. So it's a good math fixer as well as a fantastic sort of card to just push us into these strong knockouts. So even if our opponent is taking a knockout turn after turn and taking energy off the board, we still have a lot of damage through Choice Bands as well. That being said, if they are taking energy off if they are going for the energy denial route, we do have 2 EXP share as well. So if they're targeting down things on the bench that have a few energy, we're always going to have an EXP share or 2 on the board to be able to keep our damage, retain our damage, and keep knocking out with Powerful Spark turn after turn. EXP share is a really good card in these style decks. Unfortunately, there's only the space for 2 because we want to have access to Choice Bands for our Raichus, and a lot of our guys are weak anyway. These are going to be going on things like Oranguru and Lele in general. But yeah, having access to them just means we don't have to run too much recovery. We are running 2 Super Rod anyway. But that being said, having access to this as well means we can often prioritize Pokemon over energy for our Super Rods. Again, as I say, we're running 2 Super Rod. Being able to get Mew back, being able to get Oranguru back is really nice. Because we're only running 3 Raichu-GX as well, it can sometimes be a little bit hard to cycle them. So just being able to shuffle them back into the deck means that we always have access to our main attacker as well. Much better than Rescue Stretch as well, because it can search energy if we need to. Finally, 2 Field Blower. Things like Fury Belts can be a bit annoying for us. We also don't really want to see too many sort of... Ability Lock doesn't bother the deck too much, but in the latter stages of the game where we want to go for this last push for a Guzma, we want to have access to Field Blower as and where we need it. Also, being able to get rid of Choice Bands means that Raichu will often take 2-for-1 knockouts, because if our opponent can't knock out a Raichu, chances are we're going to be able to knock out 2 of our opponent's GX Pokemon ourselves. So it's really good for being able to survive with Raichu. And also the big thing is we're not playing any stadiums, so Parallel City can really hurt this deck. So we want to be able to get rid of Parallels as soon as possible, so we're not losing too much value to them, and be able to attach more energy back onto the board. So yeah, Field Blow is a really, really important card in this deck. And finally, onto the energy. We are running 15 Lightning Energy. It's a huge count, but this is kind of the count we've sort of seen in these style of decks before. It's really important to hit this energy turn 1. The deck kind of needs to hit Static Generation turn 1 to keep up with some decks, especially things like Buzzwole. So having access to so many just means we're going to hit turn 1 almost certainly. But also, it means our damage cap is stupidly high. It's like 350 or something. So even if our opponent is taking off a lot of energy at a time, we should still be getting knockouts if we can get a few turns of Static Generation off. And it just means we always hit it. So it's not too much of an issue if we have to discard some early. It's not too much of an issue if we don't find our Super Rods too early, because we should always have access to loads of energy in the deck for us to pull out with Static Generation. But yeah, other than that, the deck is super simple. A couple of tech choices could be some of the non-EX based Raichus. This deck doesn't really have a non-EX attacker. Obviously, Oranguru can attack, but it's not fantastic. But yeah, the couple of the non-EX Raichus you could try out. Personally, we've gone for as consistent as possible. Getting Static Generation turn 1 and just sort of rolling from there is the idea. Me and Joe have both played a fairly decent amount of Xerneas. Joe's played a lot more than me, but I've also been playing it over the past few weeks. And this deck feels this is such a similar build. You just kind of want to do exactly what you want to do. You want to get an energy turn 1. You want to fill your board with lots of energy for powerful spark to sort of start going off, and just taking knockouts here, there, and everywhere. So yeah, we've kept it super simple, super clean. Not too much room for tech choices, but I would start looking at maybe some of the non-EX Raichus if you were looking for a non-EX attacker in general. But yeah, other than that, thank you very much for watching. I've been Jack from OmniPoke, and I look forward to seeing you guys in another video.